now here are the topics for today's webinar. I'm going to begin by telling you about our new main menu and some nice new information that you can get from that. We'll turn to the use of filters to help you set criteria and cut long lists of applicants down to just those people that meet your criteria. I'll explain to you a feature we call pipeline stages, and this is often used by our clients who are screening applicants in the central office and then only releasing or forwarding those applicants who meet certain minimum criteria to you. And at that point, we'll learn to add columns of qualifications to the applicant list to help you speed up getting a first impression of the qualifications of a list of applicants for a vacancy. I'll teach you some batch actions. These are actions you can take for groups of people that will just speed you up in the handling of them in AppliTrack. I'll show you how you can send out or set up email alerts. We call these routings, so that when someone applies for one of your positions, you get an email alert. This is most useful when you are trying to fill hard-to-fill positions. And then I'll speak to you about reference surveys. You can send surveys to confidentially ask the references of an applicant for their judgment on the qualifications of an applicant. So those are our topics today. And let's begin by taking a quick look at the new main menu. So I'm going to go to my web browser. I'm logged into my AppliTrack system, and when I do, I am looking at that new main menu. And over here to the right, you're going to get an increasingly personalized experience with AppliTrack because it keeps a record of the recent vacancies you've been reviewing or screening. It keeps track of which applicants you have opened and studied materials for, and then any folders that you have been working with in process. So as you get a history with AppliTrack, this becomes increasingly helpful. And then as we go to the applicants section, you'll see you have an applicant dashboard, some quick searching features here for various frequently used criteria, and as you scroll down, you'll see an activity timeline and some overall statistics. Let me show you what this looks like more in a real system rather than my demonstration system. So you'll see how many new applicants come in each day, how many have submitted or completed, how many jobs were posted on that day, and then some statistics such as the average number of new applicants per week for the last 30-day timeline. So if you like to just keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with your applicants, that can be helpful. And now let's take a look at our next items here. Let's begin to learn to use filters. You could think of these as searches. They help you narrow a long list of applicants down to just those that meet certain minimum qualifications. And then you can save those searches for your later use. You're saving the criteria of your search. I need to start the screening process for a kindergarten teaching position. That's the type of position we always get very large numbers of applicants for, so I plan to use filtering. So I'm going back to my system. I'm going to re-click the main menu just to get a fresh start, and if you ever get lost in AppliTrack, that's a good thing to do because you can get right back to the beginning and try your task again. So I'm going to look for applicants. I'd like to see them listed by the vacancy they applied for and group those into categories. And of course, this is an elementary school teaching vacancy. And then here are the list of vacancies we're trying to fill in my district. Well, here's the kindergarten teacher in my building, and oh boy, 250 applicants. Well, we know it's not humanly possible to thoroughly review 250 applicants, and that's why I plan to use filtering. So I'm going to show you two different approaches now. The first one is kind of a quick filter approach with some ready-to-go criteria that we have for you. I'm going to begin by clicking that link and then view all applicants. And so now I have the first page out of 5 pages that it takes to list these applicants. I'm going to go on the left to filter applicants, scroll down in the panel here on the left a bit, and I'd like to do a quick filter on on certification. I have to be sure these people hold the legally required certificate. So I'm clicking certification. And here in Illinois, that's the types of certificates you're seeing right now because that's where I'm located. But of course, you would see your state certificate. 199 out of these 249 do have the required certificate. So I'm clicking that link, and that cut 50 people out of my list, so that was helpful. But I'm going to go on by going back in the list and then saying, show me just those people who hold a master's degree. So I'm clicking highest degree, and here you can see 42 of the 199 hold the master's degree. And so now by setting those two criteria of holding the correct certificate and having a master's degree, now I only have 42 applicants to screen through, a much more manageable job than 250. But now let me show you a second approach to filtering that is just a little more complex, but I think will actually speed you up even more. And here we're going to go directly to the full search form. So I'm going to start again by going back to the main menu, return to the applicants section, but now instead of clicking vacancies by category or by location, I'm going to scroll down a bit here because I'd like to go directly to the search form where I can enter all of my criteria at once. Notice right here in the status tab, here's where you could search on notes that you may have left at an earlier time. That's not relevant to my search today, but I wanted you to know that. And now I'm actually going to enter 5 different search criteria and search for those all at once. I'm going to begin by going to the vacancy tab and telling AppliTrack I'd like to search only those applicants who've applied for the kindergarten teaching position in my building. Also in this vacancy tab is where I can set my criteria for minimum years of experience. And of course, that's going to be 1 or more years of experience for today. Now I'm going to move to the licensure, or that's also, of course, a synonym for certificate, and to tell AppliTrack that anyone who holds any of the endorsements of an elementary certificate K through 9 will meet my criteria. Notice this is where you can search for very specific types of certifications or licenses. Again, you'll see those appropriate for your own state. And now I'm moving to the Education tab because I would like to set a minimum undergraduate GPA of 3.0 or higher. So that's my 4th criteria. And then finally, I'm going to the Other tab because one skill that would be quite useful in my building right now would be Spanish language fluency. So I'm going to also search for anyone who reported that. So 5 different criteria I have entered in my search form. And now I can click Find Applications in the lower right. And I'm quite pleased because that was a pretty exacting search, but 13 out of the 250 applicants did meet that criteria. So I hope that filtering or searching will be an advantage to you. You have to be careful and thoughtful with it. You have to be able to say to yourself, I would not consider any applicant unless they met this criteria. But when you can say that to yourself in confidence, then filtering or searching is quite a valuable tool. Now, I mentioned saving this search. We're going to go on and save this search as what we call a search folder. And so these 5 criteria are going to be associated with that folder. If you get further applicants that come along, so maybe you're doing your screening while this position is still open, and you may get additional applicants. Any of your new applicants that meet those 5 criteria will be automatically placed in this folder. So AppliTrack is watching those applicants, and as they apply, they will be placed in this folder with you. So a search folder can be fairly powerful when you use it early on in your searching while your vacancies are still open. So now this is part of batch actions. And right at the top, I want to save my search. Again, this is saved as a folder. And so it's in the folder name, it puts search results. So here I might name this meaningfully, as kindergarten to help me remember this. Maybe a little more there. All right, so this is going to be my search results for the kindergarten. And if I wanted to, I might even list out some of the criteria, like 1+ years. I may not take the time to type all of these out, but you may want to so you can remember what criteria did I set in this folder and so on. And so I'm putting some detail in that folder name. And now notice right down here under View Access, search folders are a little bit different than a standard folder. So this folder is a search folder. The items appearing in this folder match the criteria used to originally create the folder. Now you won't be able to add people in here manually yourself. You would need to create an additional folder then if you needed to add people in later. So you'll have to learn a little bit about the unique features of a search folder, but again, it can be helpful when you use those early on in your searching process while your vacancies are still open. Well, let's save and close this folder, and let's go look for that search folder. It's in Main Menu in My Account, and then My Folders. And I just want you to notice one thing here. Notice right here is the folder under My Folders. There's the folder, and again, search results, and it even puts search folder at the end of the name I typed in to let you know these are the people who are meeting your criteria. Once you look at those criteria, and out of these people, if you want to put them in a further folder, then of course you could go on and select those people who are really of more higher interest to you and put those in a new folder for easy access to those people later. I'm sure you're aware of this add them to a folder link here on the left that you could use. So I hope the search folder and saving it is a useful tool to you. Let's move on now and let's learn to add columns of qualifications to the applicant list and then save those for later use. And I want to do this for just those applicants in the qualified pipeline stage. So here's that idea of the pipeline stage, and your district may be using that, especially if they're doing screening of applicants in the central office and only releasing or forwarding those who meet those criteria to you for your review. So I need to begin this by just explaining this pipeline stage idea. It's just a metaphor for moving applicants through successive stages of the process. And when applicants first apply, they're here in the default stage. At this point is when they get screened for by your human resource or personnel office, and they are placed in the qualified stage. And at this point, they're eligible for your review. And your district may be using different terms than these stage names. They might call that first stage eligible for review. So your system may use different labels than our default system here. So again, human resources screen and then place these people in the qualified or eligible for review stage. At that point is when you can see just that subset of people who applied. And then you can move those subset of the qualified applicants to the interview stage, offer, and hire stage, and so on. So now let's take the how-tos of doing this. So we're taking on two skills at the same time here. Let's go back to our list of kindergarten applicants. Well, maybe we could just work with the 13 who are here in our search folder. What if I want to see the educational and qualifications of these applicants right in the list? Well, I can change the columns here by going back and then choosing Add Remove Columns. And then at the top, choose a column preset. These are preset sets of information or columns that you can display in this table. So I'd like to see education and the credentials background. And now if you'll please scan the column headers, I hope you agree when I called these the basic qualifications that we tend to look at early on, and then we make some decisions. Are we going to look further at these applicants or not? One thing I would like to see that's not in this table is the prior work or teaching experience. So I can add additional columns to this table, and that's what this long list is for down the side. It's such a long list, it's kind of difficult to work with. But one little trick of the trade is to collapse this list into its headers or its groups. And what I'd like to do is to click Experience and add in the recent employment. And so now notice I just added in that column there. So you could start with one of our preset columns, and if you like those, and then add in additional columns. In just a moment, I'm going to show you how you can save this for your review. Let's start from scratch as if we wanted to build our own sets of columns. And so let's do default column set. And so now we're back to the beginning. And now I'm just going to add in the columns that I want to see. So I'm going to collapse the list, go back to my experienced item as I just did, add in recent employment, and there's that column. I'd also like to see the highly qualified subjects. And so I check highly qualified subjects, and I have that column, and so on. GPA matters to me, so I'm going to go down to education. I believe it's education continued, and then I'd like to see the applicant's undergraduate GPA, and I also would like to see their certification. There's a lot of confusion, it seems, on what certificates are required. So I want the in-state certificates. You can see that I've added in 4, and I'm going to finish up by adding in the teacher fit results. This is our screening criteria that predicts future on-the-job performance. And so I'd like to see the teacher fit score results. And now I may need to get used to scrolling a little bit. There's my teacher fit column, and there's the scores. These are stay 9 scores, so a score of 9 is a high score. So now I've got the columns of information I want, but I want to remove these blocks of text here because they make it visually hard to use. To do that, I scroll down, I click Positions Desired. That's this list of jobs that people have applied for. Scroll again and choose No Positions Desired. And that will remove. So you can remove as well as add. I'm going to remove the action history that tells me what I've done with particular applicants. So click Action History and uncheck Action History. So now that's a neater to use table. I'm going to finish up by removing Date Completed. That's in global fields. You'll learn your way around this list with just about 2 or 3 uses of it. And now let's save this so I don't have to do that setup in the future. There's a disk symbol right here. I'm clicking it. And now in a new window, I can choose to create a new preset. This is going to become an item in this menu over here for me to use later. So I'm clicking Continue. And then the preset name is going to be Initial Certified Screening. These are the criteria I like to look at when I'm first screening a set of certified applicants. There's other material here, and I hope you'll look through that sometime later. For now, I'm clicking Save Preset, and then close this window. Now let's test drive this. Let's imagine we just logged in and found a list of applicants. We're going to see it in this default view, but now with just a single column choice, Initial Certified Screening, these columns display for me. So I hope that will be a way to be more efficient during that first look at a set of applicants. And now I remember I was going to show you how to find the subset of applicants who were qualified by your central office staff members so you can see just that portion of applicants. And let's do this with the library applicants. So I'm going to go to Main Menu, Applicants, And this is an elementary library position, so vacancies by category, and then elementary teaching. And right here is the vacancy I'm screening for. And just notice here, this is what I wanted you to notice. My district is using pipeline stages. There's 23 total applicants, but only 15 have met the screening criteria. And you can see I'm underway because I've placed 2 of a total of 17 applicants into the interview stage. So this is how you can find just those subsets of applicants that your human resource or personnel office staff members have screened for you. When I click qualified, now I'm looking at just those 15 applicants. Let's move on and let's learn to use some shortcuts. We call these batch actions to do the same task for multiple applicants all at once. And we're going to learn to add a group of people to a folder and then advance those to the interview stage and then email groups of people, and yet those applicants will get private individual emails. Now, let me mention, why would you need to use a folder? Well, what if your district is using the pipeline feature, but 50 or more applicants did meet the qualification criteria? Well, you may not want to continue working with a list of 50 applicants every time you come back to AppliTrack and you click Applicants, find your vacancy list, and then click the qualified link. 50 people is a little clumsy to work with at once. Well, then you might want to create a folder that you call Under Consideration and put 20 or so of these 50 best qualified people into a folder, and then finally advance maybe, let's say, 6 to 8 of these people into an interview stage. So let's go back now to our list, and I'm actually going to change my example. I think I've got a better example in my kindergarten list. So let's go back to that kindergarten by clicking Applicants, Vacancies by Category, Elementary, and then Kindergarten. And now down here in the pipeline stages, there 150 of the 250 did meet the minimum screening criteria. That would be an awfully long list of people to work with. But let's begin with this. And now, of course, I could study the initial criteria that I'm using for my screening. And as I see people who meet those criteria, I'm going to mark their row in the table. I don't have to take out a piece of paper and write down their names that way. And so I would continue this, of course, and I won't keep this up because I'm just randomly checking check boxes today. But you would be marking those people for your further review that you want to move into that Under Consideration folder. Now I can add them to a folder here on the left, the currently checked applicants. And I'm sure you're familiar with this, but I'll just go ahead and quickly finish this up. I'll create a new folder and call it Under Consideration for kindergarten. So let's just start with kindergarten under consideration. And then I could share this with my colleagues. I could let them modify it. So look through these if that's useful to you. But in the interest of time, I'm going to click Save and Close. And then to place these, let's say 12 or so people that I just checked into the folder, I do need to check that checkbox. That's kind of easy to overlook. And then Save and Close. And now let's go find that folder. It's in Main Menu, My Account, My Folders, and then right here is Kindergarten Under Consideration. So it looks like I actually got 9 people in that folder. Let's move forward to the next part of this process, which is, well, I want to move some of these people to the interview stage, not all of them. So at this point, you would have, I'm sure, clicked Open and studied the materials and the online application of each of these people. But at this point, let's imagine that Laura is a person of high interest to you, as is Hillary and Maria, and these are people that you've decided you are going to invite in for an interview. So now you want to move them to the next stage, the interview stage. You do that in the applicant's notepad. So we're going to mark all of these people I've just checked, it looks like 4 of them, to the interview stage using the notepad. So let's do mark them with notes. I want the currently checked applicants. And this notepad acts like a shared notepad. It will affect all 4 of these people at the same time. So again, this is a batch or a group action. I go to Vacancy Pipelines tab and then choose the interview stage. Now just be careful. Notice that sometimes applicants apply for more than one type of position. So be sure you're using the pipeline stages for the correct vacancy. So these people are going to be advanced to interview, and then we click Save and Close. Let's go back and take a look at the vacancy list. I wonder if I can get there by just re-clicking kindergarten teacher. I was hoping that I would see the pipeline stages. It looks like I have to go the long way here. So I'm just drilling down in the way I have previously. And what I wanted to show you is now in qualified, there are only 146 applicants because I took 4 of them out and placed them into the interview stage. So as you're getting down to the later part of the screening process, you can work just with the 8 people that you plan to interview. Now, let's fast forward in our scenario here, and let's imagine that we need to email this group of people because we finished our interviews and now we're ready to send out the letter that says thank you for interviewing, but sorry, you weren't chosen. So let's go back here to our list, and this is another batch action or group action. We want to send them an email. I'd like to do all in the list minus some because Rebecca was the person I recommended for hire. She has accepted that offer. I certainly don't want her to get this letter. So all in the list minus some. Now, using the list to the right, check applicants that should not be included. And that's Rebecca. Notice she's excluded and the others are included. Now I can start the email. I know you know how to send email, but there's a couple of things I'd like to show you here quickly. First of all, AppliTrack is going to send out 7 separate private emails, so don't worry about violating privacies. And as it does that, it's going to merge in the correct first name and last name of each of these 7 applicants. So don't make the mistake I did of deleting out these items that are in brackets. Those are merge fields. And I'd also like to show you how you can use email templates. You can prepare the text of your frequently used communications ahead of time as a template, and then when you insert that template, that text gets copied and pasted here into your actual email. So let's click Templates, and I have a letter ready to go. Thank you for applying or interviewing. When I click that, that text is inserted in here. I may need to edit it a little bit, but now I can click Send Message, and notice 7 separate messages were sent out. So hopefully that will speed up some of the just routine handling you might have to do. Now let's learn to set up automated email alerts. We call these routing. So when someone applies, you'll get an email with a link in it to that person's application. The time to do this is when you're trying to fill hard to fill positions and you have to stay on top of your game and take action quickly when someone applies so that somebody else doesn't get that hard to find person. This is quite simple to do. We're going to go back to the main menu and then My Account, because this is something unique to your account, and we would like to configure My Routings. Again, that's what we call these automated email alerts. And here I simply have a list of drop-down menu, and AppliTrack is wanting to know, well, what vacancy would you like to be alerted to? And it's the reading specialist. position for me that I'm struggling with. And you can even be alerted to when people apply for your pools. So if you're thinking you might have to fill a hard to fill position, such as an English as a second language teaching position, then you can say to AppliTrack, any time of the year someone applies for an ESL position, let me know, because I want to be aware that that person might be a candidate for a hard to fill position that I think might be coming up in my future. If I check send full attachments, AppliTrack will include a PDF file of all the documents in those applicants' file right in the email. And that way you don't even have to go to AppliTrack to review the applicant's materials. And now I can click Save, and then those are listing here under my routings. So hopefully that will help. And now let's finish up with our last skill, which is learning to request a reference survey about an applicant. Maybe when you have a high interest in an applicant, you're considering including them in an interview, or maybe you have interviewed them and you'd like to know more about what the professional references think. So maybe I'd like to ask Mr. Gluck what he really thinks in confidence about Laura's qualifications, because I'm getting serious about her. I can use AppliTrack to send an email to Mr. Gluck, and it said, would you please create complete an information survey. He clicks the link in that email, and that opens the online version of the confidential reference survey. Mr. Gluck fills it out, telling me in confidence what he thinks about Laura's qualifications, and when he clicks Submit Form, this becomes a completed document in Laura's file. So let me show you how quick and simple this is. First of all, I might just find Laura's file by using the search field and typing a few letters of her last name. There she is, Laura Brazier. I'm going to open her application. And now I'd like to go to her references. I've already sent this out to Mr. Anderson, and he's already responded. Here's his completed teaching survey that he did about Laura. And it will show as a PDF file like all the rest of the documents in AppliTrack. But now I'd like to send this out to another one of Laura's references, and that is Mr. Gluck. I click Send Survey. I get a chance to tell AppliTrack, well, which survey do I want to send out? It's the one about secondary teachers. I'm going to continue with that. AppliTrack just confirms this is a survey about Laura. I click Next. Here's the email that goes out to Mr. Gluck. It's formatted a little more nicely in your system, and now you can put in your from and subject area. You can ask to receive an email when Mr. Gluck submits this, and then finish and deliver it to Mr. Gluck. It looks like I'm going to have to fill that in. I'm going to forego that in the interest of time for today's webinar. So let's finish up by reviewing what we learned today. We learned some new features in the main menu. We used two different approaches to filtering for that kindergarten search. We learned about the concept of pipeline stages and how you might be able to see a subset of people that have been determined to be qualified by your human resource staff. We learned to add columns into our lists of applicants so that we can more quickly review qualifications that matter most to us during an initial screening. We used batch actions to put a group of people in a folder, advance a group of people to the interview stage, send a group of people an email, and so on. And then we use the email alerts, those routings, so that AppliTrack will let us know when people apply for a hard-to-fill position. And finally, we learned to send out a reference survey to Mr. Gluck about Laura so we can ask him in confidence what he thinks about Laura's qualifications.